Is anime degenerate? Yes, but it depends on how you use it. How do you do? This is Trixie, the Golden Witch, ranting, raving, Ota Queen, and Mother of AniTube, and you're in Vlogust, the month where I do 31 vlogs in a row for the 31 days of August, because I turned 31, and at the end of that month, I am going to make a mind-searing announcement that will terminate your chances of ever procreating or even living, honestly. You probably won't survive it. Anyways, anime. Is it good for you? Is it really? I've seen a lot of people make arguments about how anime has improved their life. Maybe you found some connection, found out something about yourself through an anime series, met some people, made a community, maybe got off the internet, found something that took you and made you a better person. But usually, the anime itself is like a propellant force for you to change something about yourself that makes your life better. And for the most part, people tend to not need the anime anymore after that. The average lifespan of an anime fan is like 2 years. This is something I've watched throughout my whole career. I've seen people come and go. I've seen the way that people who built their career around anime typically have like a peak point where they were actually interested in it, and then after that it kind of becomes a grift that they are doing because they understand it well enough that they can keep talking about it. For myself, I had multiple peak periods of being into anime. I kept coming back to it because whatever I was looking for in myself, I just wasn't finding. But I've been somebody who is obsessive about different types of media my whole life. It was always one thing to the next of, oh, I'm obsessed with Beast Wars. Now I'm obsessed with Power Rangers. Now I'm obsessed with dinosaurs. And all of those obsessions mostly took me away from being able to relate to anybody around me because other people didn't understand these obsessions. I couldn't get them interested in them by just telling them what I thought was interesting about them because that stuff didn't connect to those people naturally. So I spent a lot of my childhood trying to have conversations with people about stuff that I was interested in. But because I didn't know about the stuff that most people were interested in and I couldn't relate to it and I was unwilling to try to relate to it, I just grew further and further apart from being able to communicate with other people. So I remember a period when I was actually able to communicate with lots of people was when Pokemon blew up, and I was a huge Pokemon fan, and the fact that I could be social about Pokemon with people who lived in my neighborhood and people who went to my school meant that I was able to participate in society on a level I never had before, even going to events based around Pokemon. But even in those contexts, I was such a sheltered person that I didn't take advantage of it and really get to know older people or make connections or learn the value of trading cards and stuff like that. The things that the real values that I now see could be derived from being a part of a Pokemon club. I was getting the minimum amount of any of that by being so cloistered in my shell and only wanted to talk about the angles of things that I was interested in. And even as a YouTuber, that's always been a huge part of my problem, is I want to talk about the things that I find interesting, that I have a lot to say about. It's hard for me to just find something to say about the thing that everyone else is talking about without accidentally either being negative about it because I don't like it, or missing the point because I can't figure out what's interesting about it, or I just can't relate to the perspective, usually because I'm not listening. There's plenty of critics who whose entire existence is based around trying to figure out what the consensus opinion is and then delivering that back. And I don't find that necessarily ignoble if you are good at doing it. If you can convincingly parrot the population's opinion back at them, that's a skill in and of itself. And I'm not necessarily great at that because I will always tinge it with what I really think. So I have some appreciation for anybody who's capable of appreciating something mainstream on purpose, like deliberately deciding to connect with other people over something because of the fact that it's mainstream and you want to be able to have a conversation with people that you might not be able to otherwise. I think that when we get invested in media in a major obsessive way, it's because we're trying to find something in it that will allow us to connect better with others. And it's not even necessarily in a direct way, like just connecting with a show is connecting with others. You're connecting with someone else's communication. But because of the fact that you aren't usually able to like get into the room with the person who made the thing you're watching, it ends up being this I don't want to call it one-sided communication, but basically they send their message to you and you can interpret it however you want, and you have no way of continuing the conversation back with them a lot of the time. Obviously, if you're watching me like a YouTube show, you can go into my comments and we can flesh out your understanding of my video, but most people aren't going to even assume that they didn't understand the point. They're going to think that they did and just go forward with that understanding. So like media as a means of communication is very fractured. And I mean, you can watch someone like Chris Chan. If you watch the Geno Samuel documentary on Chris Chan, it's a great argument for the idea that media cannot improve you as a person. That you could watch every single show that comes on and learn nothing from all the messages of those shows about how to communicate with other people, how to be a member of society, like what about your behavior is not acceptable. And a lot of people will probably blame that on Chris Chan's autism, but autism does not prevent you from those things. It's his narcissism, their narcissism, that causes those issues. It's the complete absence of giving a fuck about what anything that doesn't like directly pertain to Chris getting what they want. Like that's anything that's not like going to get Chris closer to pussy is completely alien and inane and not worth addressing, regardless of whether it would make anyone like or appreciate or be more willing to help that person. I think you can get positive messages out of media, but ultimately that positivity was already inside of you. It's like someone's giving words to something that you already believed and allowing you to like feel more faith in that belief because you see that someone else also believes it and they were able to put it so potently that it feels like more real, more tangible. I think that's like where the powerful side of media comes from. Media literally gives us language. Like, language is how we contextualize our surroundings and like make order out of chaos. And art is a language that lets us do that to more abstract concepts and feelings, and be able to like take something that you thought was only in your head and realize that actually it exists all over the place. It's also like a playground in a sense, because of the fact that, again, unless you go and get into an argument with the creator of the thing, and even then you have to be willing to accept that they might know more about it than you, which a lot of people don't. The world of media becomes this like hurt people hurting people like arena. It's like all these people who are just trying to express like their own personal trauma through movies, and then other people who are like, you didn't express my trauma and now I'm upset at you about it. And like it creates this world where people can think that because they're invested overall in like film or anime, that now they are like empowered to bully films and anime. Like, well, I've seen hundreds of films, and so if a film doesn't live up to my standards, I have the right to talk about how shitty it is and how it wasted my time. And it's like, why? Like, what about that experience gives you that right when there's tons of people who had that experience and don't feel the need to go and be an aggressive asshole about it? I just think that the feeling of comfort people have in being a part of media as like a bubble makes them feel empowered to take shots at something, especially because it's not real. Like the movies aren't real, so who cares if you shit on the not real thing? But like the process of creating the thing is real. All of the emotions behind the thing are real. The intentions behind the artists are real. And like all of that is often, brought under fire totally without context. Like, people who don't know anything about the intentions of the creator going and like putting words in their mouth and attacking them and feeling like they're empowered to do so, again, because they're talking about movies. And it's just like this playground, this fake world where there's no stakes and nothing matters and you can say whatever you want. And people treat it like talking about those fantasy worlds is like participating in the fantasy, as opposed to like bringing it like it's divorced from our reality somehow. And I find that incredibly degenerate. Obviously, the sexual element has to come into play here as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having like, crazy sexual interests or whatever, as long as it's not hurting anybody. But I also think that there's a lot of people who are just indulging in the like emotions that like compel them into that type of art without any like self-criticism or even desire to like come back to the light of any kind of normal society. I mean, I know there's sort of the stereotype of like a person who like functions really well in regular society, and they go home and they just like beat off once to some crazy like beheading video or something, and then they're fine for the rest of the week. But like there's other people who are just like sitting there like thinking about like their fetish and getting lost in like this world that it defines them all day, and like just fucking becoming a neat and just like living in a world of fucking whatever your kink is, or just even being like a collector of all things. There's tons of people who just categorically are going through every single thing that exists within the span of their interest. Like, I'm going to watch every anime. I'm going to play every visual novel that anyone's ever talked about. I'm going to watch every single, read every doujin that comes out of Comic this year. There's just so many people like mass downloading, mass consuming all this stuff, searching for something that you cannot find in the media. Like, if you are bypassing it over and over and over again for years, it's because you're unwilling to look at the truth you've already seen. Like, again, most people, it only takes about 2 years, usually in their adolescence. They go through a phase, they watch a shitload of anime, they catch on to something about themselves, and then they go live. And it's very rare that people get so deeply invested that they stay a part of it. And again, like I said, most people will figure out that like, oh, I'm not into anime, I'm into like Ghibli movies, or I'm into Kyoto Animation shows, or I'm just into Yuri, or I'm into action, or I'm just into One Piece, and like that's an obsession that can take you along for 20 years. And that makes perfect sense. That's no different from like having a train set in your backyard or whatever fucking thing, playing a video game that you like. Like most people have some kind of hobby. It's weird to be lost in the morass of general like consumption for 5-10 years, to be just constantly searching and searching. Speaking personally, I felt my search end when I transitioned. It was like, this is what the message was. It should have been, not even that it wasn't obvious to me, just that I kept denying it and finding reasons to deny it until a point where I had too many words, too much language, like proving to myself, what the point was for me to get the point. But I've seen people just spiral around the drain of getting the point forever, and a lot of the time it's because they won't face it. They're not trying to get out of anime. They're trying to burrow deeper into it. They're trying to see something even more shockingly heinous, or get even closer to indulging in their bad thoughts, and then they get to a point where they won't go outside because they're scared that they're a pedophile. And like, well, you probably are. If you won't go outside, you need to go outside and convince yourself to stop being a pedophile person. Like, I've seen people. I used to talk to people in the lolly community who were older than me back in my early days as an anime fan, and I remember this one dude who was like really scared by reading this one manga that was like it was a manga about a pair of guys who get into lolly, and then they start getting into child pornography, and then they eventually go out and start kidnapping and raping girls until they kill themselves when they're finally being traced by the police. And this person was telling me, like, I'm afraid that this could be me. And I was like, how? Like, all you had to do is not go past step 1. As soon as you went from lolly to looking at child porn, you've crossed a threshold into hurting people. And if you can't draw that line, then yeah, you have gone too far. You are too degenerate. The fact that you consider that a possibility within yourself means you need to start addressing that. You need to start pulling away from the lolly. You need to start, and even like for me, reading the story gave me that impression. I was like in talking to this person about it, I was like, wow, this makes me not want to ever see lolly again, because it makes me think that like everyone who's seeing it thinks that this is like the road they're going down, you know? And to me, anime, pornography, all of it, it's like a drug. It's a something that's meant to satisfy you emotionally in like an immediate sense. Like you're watching it for, even if it's just the sound and light, whatever is satisfying about it, the ineffable quality that you might not be able to quantify, like it's meant to satisfy you. And so in the same sense of like masturbating or eating something or whatever makes you feel like better in that like immediate sense, anime media, it's all supposed to do that. So if you get lost, or drugs, you know, another example, like if anime is like a drug, and there used to be those people with the anime is my anti-drug t-shirts, but like if you treat anime like a drug, it's no better. If you end up addicted to it in a sense that like this is all you're doing with yourself, because like you haven't, like anime is not teaching you anything about how to communicate with others, then you are like just again missing the point and letting it be a comfort blanket. And I really think it's only even possible for people to be this way when you know, when they have too much safety, when like their life is actually spoken for, when like for whatever reason you don't have to struggle, you don't have to change, you don't have to join society to live, allows you to do this for longer and longer. And like most people will kind of eventually have to face enough reality that it pulls them out of remaining lost in fantasy. And the main people, like frankly, when I've met people who are in their like 40s and 50s who are still as engaged in like online communities and in like media discussion as people who are like 17, a lot of them tend to be really strange people who, I mean, the kind of people who would put themselves in a conversation with 17-year-olds when they're in their 40s, you know, like it's just, it's like, it is sus to be so clouded in your ability to connect with other people for so long that you still need to talk to children about cartoons. And for me, as a 31-year-old who, you know, literally talks about cartoons for a living, there's a level on which like I don't know how healthy it is for me to like try to introduce a new generation into like getting into anime, like even if it was to my benefit, you know, to like perpetuate anime. Obviously I've done a terrible job of that. Most of what I've said has been like anime is heinous and probably should die, and this is just contributing, just piling onto that. But I think the healthiest anime are like the big successful ones like Kimetsu no Yaiba that like are just a teenager's obsession for 2 years when they're like questioning gender or whatever, or questioning their sexuality, which is almost always what this is all about, is like, you know, you realize that there's something about your puberty is a little different from everyone else's puberty, and you start watching fucking foreign cartoons about it because you don't feel like the same person as the people around you. And it only takes so long to recognize in anime that like usually, you know, there's 50 characters, all of whom are based on archetypes of people that the author has come to understand through having like a strong empathetic artistic understanding of the people that they were surrounded with when they were in high school and growing up. And like you read the manga and you realize, okay, other people are trying too, other people have their own lives, now I understand. And then you fucking move on and you become a part of society, and every once in a while you like watch a show because you got nothing better to do. I really do think there's like something of a media graduation process that you have to go through where like at some point you just got to acknowledge like there's not an anime that's better than an HBO show, like a high like a high concept, high budget, well acted, like piece of prestige television. Like I can watch Westworld or Watchmen or The Wire or any of these like legendarily well written shows and well presented shows that like when I try to think of anime that's like at that level of like craftsmanship, there's just not a lot. And the ones that are endlessly rewatchable and endlessly discussable, but they are so few and far between as compared to what exists in anime. Most anime is like shockingly trash. Like most of it, if you're watching seasonally and there's 60 new shows that come out and like 2 of them are not shockingly trash on average, I don't know how to recommend all that to anybody because it's not really to be recommended. It's for you to stumble into because like for me as a teenager, getting back into anime for like the second time, it was about Yuri. Like I just fucking context tagged Yuri on every site I went to and watched everything that was under that tag because that was me trying to come to understand my sexuality. And I couldn't because I didn't understand transgenderism yet because there wasn't an anime about it yet till Horomusko. Now, frankly, I am not a moralistic person. I'm not trying to help you for your sake even. I want people to be better for my sake. I want all of you to be more successful, better rounded human beings so that you make more money and you can give more of it to me for helping you figure your shit out. And I'm here to tell you, if you're burrowing your head in the sand of anime, you gotta pull it out. You can't stay there. You gotta move on. It's time. It's time to go to the next stage. It's time to try something new. If you're just getting into anime, that's fine. Just keep at it for however long you need. But if you find yourself like just fucking hating on shows and like your life is now talking about how shitty anime it has become since whenever you got into it, just know that that has always been the case. There have always been people like you. There's always been a large community of people just stuck with anime, unable to move on, upset that it never quite gave them what they thought they needed from it because they couldn't find it in themselves or rejected it when they found it. And if you find yourself in that chair, anime is just going to keep degenerating you. It's not going to help you with anything. One of my mottos is everything in moderation. Do everything. Give everything a shot. But moderate yourself. Figure out what's the limit. Have I crossed the line? Is this making my life better? Do I feel better because of this? Do you really feel better when you watch a show you don't like so you can bitch about it? Or do you feel like a miserable sack of shit? If you feel like a miserable sack of shit, consider doing something else. If everything you're watching feels like this amazing discovery and you're learning something new about the world and about yourself, keep fucking watching anime until that feeling goes away. I have never lost that feeling from anime because I know what anime are good. I've spent so much time researching it that I have like a list of 50 shows I've never seen that I know are good, that are going to give me that magical feeling, and I'm holding on to them. I do not feel any rush to watch those shows. I need to have things for the rest of my life to watch, but I already got what I needed from anime. I don't need to be rushing through it. I don't need to identify with it. I don't need to be like, anime is my personality. It's a cool thing I know a lot about. And I can make some money talking about it sometimes. It's fun to make lists of all my favorites. And I like showing the good ones to my friends and seeing what they think. But there's not a lot of great ones. And I'm not going to pretend there are. Anime is a drug. Use it responsibly. I've been Trixie the Golden Witch. You can find more of my writing on goldenwitch.substack.com. You can support me on patreon.com/goldenwitchfire. For $5 a month, I will rant about whatever you want. I do a stream at the end of the month where I go through all the rant requests. You just DM me a request and I'll tell you if I am capable of doing it. Also, I'm a part of the hip-hop group Sucker Punch. We release a new song every single week. You can find links to that in the description or just go search for it on Spotify. Also, I appear in podcasts on the ASE Presents channel, which is linked in the description below, along with my playlist of every video that features me on YouTube. If you need to catch me everywhere that I'm at, I'm all over the place. I'm like a ghost ninja apparition right behind you. Oh shit, double vision. Clearer than Claritin. All right, I'm done. That's it. Don't forget, anime is degenerate.